Hey folks, so if you are watching this on YouTube, that means I managed to pull off a ridiculous 60 to 70 speedrun that effectively just breaks the entire route wide open. Now the reason I am starting the run here, or rather starting the recording of the video of the run here, instead of actually starting it even on the character that I plan on running with, is because there's a little something that I need to explain before we start, namely how Dreamsurges work. Now, if you watched my recent Fury Warrior speedrun, I did a little bit of explanation on that, but the thing with that run is I was just kind of going for a good speedrun, right? Like, average RNG, what can you do, like, in a realistic setting? And I got 2 hours 60 to 70, which is pretty damn good, and that was before Turbulent Timeways. But right now, what I've been going for this entire day is a perfect speedrun. Like, all the stars align, perfect RNG, and with Dreamsurges, that is something so ridiculously hard to set up that it is currently past midnight, like 20 minutes past midnight, my time. I have been trying to set this run up since 5 a.m. And the RNG just hasn't happened. And the RNG I'm talking about is this. It's this buff right here. So in order to really make Dreamsurge leveling efficient, you need to have two things. First, every single time you level within a Dreamsurge zone, you get this thing, Dreaming Winds. Gives you 25% experience flat. That's good. That is not RNG. However, there is this buff over here, which I can go and check. Unfortunately, the risk of recording it, in war mode and stuff, which I probably should have turned off, is that I can get ganked, which has happened a few times. But here you can see Dreamsurge Learnings is currently being voted for on the poll, and it is winning, thankfully. Sometimes it doesn't, and that really sucks. But this gives you 50% additional experience on top of that 25% buff, for a grand total of 75% additional experience. Now, what was that RNG I'm talking about, right? Because obviously that buff's not guaranteed, but clearly it's on the poll right now. It's going to happen in 8 minutes. That can't be too hard, right? Everybody's leveled with that. Well, I've mentioned in a few different runs before that in order to get the best possible RNG, you need to have a series of things happen with the Dreamsurge buffs, because the way the buff works, right now, Dreamsurge Defenders is the one that got voted for. I think, and yeah, it's Dreamsurge Heartbloom 2. I'm not entirely sure how that works. I have, like, 2 of the buffs active at once. One of these 2 won, one of them is, like, carried over from the other one, but the point is, whichever one won, which was one of these 2, that buff cannot appear as one of the voting options. Which means that assuming you get perfect RNG, and every single time that the XP buff can possibly be up, it is up, you still only get 50% uptime, because it'll be up, and then while it is active, it will not be available as one of the, potential voting rewards. And even if you are ridiculously lucky, and you get it, like, every single time, you still only get 50% uptime. That, once again, is if you're super lucky. A lot of times you will only get it once every so often. Like maybe once every 2 hours you'll see this 50% buff. But there is kind of a loophole that I've mentioned where one of the options that can appear in the Dreamsurge voting thing is all buffs at the same time. It's extremely rare. It only comes about, I'm going to say, like once every 12 hours because, like I said, I've been waiting here since 5 a.m. and I've seen it once. And what that means is that if you get the XP buff into the all buff thing, you can effectively get an entire hour's worth of the 50% experience buff without having to, like, wait and go somewhere else in the 50% time when it's down. And that, for a speedrun, is kind of important, or at least a perfect speedrun. Now, there are ways to play around this, which when I make my Dreamsurge guide, I will, of course, discuss in more detail, and it's what I've done in all my runs so far. I have yet to actually get a run where that astronomically low RNG thing happens, but like I said, the entire point of this run, the reason you're watching it on YouTube, is because, in theory, I managed to get it. Now, I'm recording this segment at this point in time. I might get really lucky, and in 4 minutes, this buff might flip over and hit the all buffs thing, in which case I will suddenly go, oh crap, I need to go start the run right now. But realistically speaking, there is a good chance that this buff flips over, the 2 options don't have the all buffs thing, and then I go back to, I don't know, doing whatever for like 3 more hours until this situation potentially arises, because I have no idea what's going to happen after 4 minutes is up. I don't. So right now, all I can do is sit here and wait for it to tick over. And part of the reason that I'm recording this section now is because whether this buff is it or not, and, the run starts here or the run starts in 3 hours, I'm gonna have to edit this video fairly heavily outside of the speedrun. The speedrun will, of course, be one continuous segment, as always, but the reality of leveling recently in Dragonflight, and especially in Thaldraszus, is there's like a lot of graphics issues that I continually run into, which cause memory leaks, which means that the audio is going to cut out if I'm recording it live, and it's going to cause some minor frame rate stuttering, which sucks. And the reality is, for, an actual YouTube video, I'm just going to have to edit that in post and then, do a voiceover explanation of what I'm doing, because I don't want to have like an hour long of just dead air and you're watching in silence as I do questing stuff. I don't think that's interesting. I've already accepted that since most of this run is going to happen in Thaldraszus, and Valdrakken and the surrounding areas is where that memory leak occurs the most, the recording is probably going to be a little bit problematic and will require some editing. So I'm just recording this now and I will put it in there. So just a fair warning for that later on in the run, but I will, of course, try to keep you all entertained with explanations on what I am doing at the moment. And I should also note that one of the things about Dreamsurges and why after this run, I don't really know if I'll be doing there's a saying for this. I hate that thing. One of the reasons why I don't really plan on doing a lot of Dreamsurge leveling, or frankly 60 to 70 leveling in general after this point, is because this is just a nightmare to optimize. It's fine, I guess, for casual levelers who just sometimes you see that there's a 75% bonus and you're like, okay, I guess I'll level now. But if you're trying to actually get speedruns done, dealing with this level of RNG, this is by far the worst thing I've ever had to deal with in the however many years that I've done World of Warcraft speedruns. It's just such a massive headache trying to account for this. The worst part is, it's actually something that people have to vote for. Now, you might think, oh, well, who wouldn't vote for a 50% experience buff? But sometimes it loses. And sometimes I'm sitting here staring at this little voting thing, and a bunch of people are voting for the other option. And that's another, entire 30 minutes of potential leveling down the tube. Because I guess random people decided they wanted a passive speed boost compared to 50% experience or reputation. It's a massive headache. I'm going to try to do my best to teach you guys how to optimize this in my eventual Dreamsurge guide. But while you can optimize it to a reasonable degree in semi-casual runs where you're just trying to go fast within reason, for speedruns, which generally speaking, in my opinion, the hallmark of a speedrun is doing everything possible within your power to optimize your efficiency and save as much time as possible, that is just not a realistic thing. I mean, hell, the character I'm on right now, I tried to do the exact run that I'm about to attempt on Sunday, live on stream. You can even find the recording on my channel. I did it at the very end after a few other speedruns I did, and I spent, must have been over an hour just, meticulously preparing every last thing and, figuring out the routing. And then after starting the run, just everything that possibly could go wrong went wrong. And despite my best efforts and despite my best preparation, I just got screwed in so many ways. None of the RNG went my way. A bunch of random factors just lost me a ton of time. And it's really, really frustrating. And that's kind of, I guess, on the note of why when so many people ask me, why do you always do 10 to 60 speedruns? Why not do all the way 10 to 70 or 1 to 70? It's because 10 to 60 is chromie time. And chromie time is relatively predictable and within your control. If you get a good speedrun, it's usually because you just played your ass off and just you routed everything correctly. You maybe got a little bit of good luck, but it doesn't play a huge factor. And, it's kind of all on you. But Dragonflight leveling so far has just been a complete crapshoot. And you can see here, unfortunately, it ticks over, and neither of these are the all-buff option. So, unfortunate. And that's kind of one of the things that I've been doing all today. I've been just checking here, I wait, and then, I see, okay, ticks over, no all buffs. Oh well, I try again. So it's going to reach a point where, if at 3 in the morning, I still haven't managed to get this to line up, I probably will just try to do the run with only a single instance of the buff. But until then, I'm going to keep trying, and hopefully when the video picks up from now, you're going to catch a super excited Haraldin who just managed to get the perfect setup and is about to start the run. We'll see. Anyways, Haraldin from midnight on a Monday is out. I guess it's technically Tuesday, but whatever. Okay, well, it's been 5 hours since I recorded that intro, and I still haven't seen the overlap, but in 30 minutes there's going to be an XP buff. So we are just going to start the run in 3, 2, 1. And as usual, I have really no time to waste here. Just gotta start this quest line, and we're just gonna kind of explain things as we go. So, as I mentioned in the intro before, which is kind of why I wanted to do that, so I don't need to explain everything, I was going for the perfect speedrun. And I think, like, honestly, this kind of just goes to show just how ridiculously difficult getting, like, insane RNG is. Now, if everything goes correctly, now before I forget, let me queue for a time walking dungeon. There we go. If everything goes correctly, I should still be able to get a ridiculous time. Like, the whole double XP buff back-to-back thing, obviously, while that is perfect RNG, as, you know, that should be obvious, right? As the name implies, right? We're literally going for the absolute best possible RNG. That isn't necessarily required to get, like, a very, very, very fast time. In fact, I don't know, I guess it obviously would help, right? I'd rather have the XP buff than not have it for certain sections, but outside of that initial 30-minute window, its effectiveness is, like, questionable in terms of, like, how much time it would realistically save. Like, it definitely wouldn't save, like, 50% more time, right? Because you only need really, like, 5 or 10 minutes of that buff. Would this actually be the boat? I think the boat actually came. Now, we're not taking that boat, obviously. Yeah, we did get the really insane RNG. Would have loved that RNG back when you actually wanted to ride the boat as part of the runs. One thing I will note, though, is I've been running into a million different memory leak issues. Now, it's probably not going to happen until I hit Thaldraszus, and I even warned you guys in the, like, little intro to this video that it's something that has been happening and could happen in the middle of the run. So everybody should already be, like, fully aware that it is a possibility that the audio will cut out. And of course, if it does, then, you know, future Harlden will immediately cut in and start, like, doing a voiceover. But I am just, like, giving that warning again because I hate that it happens, but there's not really a whole lot that I can do about it. So, yeah. Thankfully, I did get a time walking queue pop right now. Now, since this is Turbulent Timeways, right, what you want to do before really anything else is as much of Turbulent Timeways as you can and get the ideally 30% buff stacked up. That's kind of like mandatory to really get the most out of this. And as you might imagine, since I want the full value of the buff, and the thing goes in 30 minutes, I'm kind of on a pretty strict timetable here. And that is the main reason why, to get, like, absolutely flawless perfect RNG, I would need the 1 hour buff. Because if I had 1 hour worth of 75% increased experience, as I kind of mentioned before, it's not even that I need the full hour. It's just that the entire questline in Thaldraszus that we'll be doing in this run, because it is the Thaldraszus Dreamsurge, for anyone who's watching, like, far into the future, for some context, I'm going to Blessing of Freedom myself there. The full questline that I really want to do to get, like, the absolute most out of it, it's going to take me roughly 35 to 40 minutes. And I'm actually not going to do anything else in Thaldraszus after that. It's just the one questline. And because of that, when I only have 30 minutes to get the buff, right, that just really strains my schedule. So if I know that I have a full hour, then that makes things a little bit easier, because then what I can do, right, is if I have the 75% experience buff right now, like if it was the full hour and I was starting there and I knew it was happening back to back, I'd be able to do these time walking dungeons while knocking out parts of Thaldraszus with the 75% buff. And what you'll see is, immediately after I get out of this time walking dungeon, I'm going to be doing still some parts of Thaldraszus without the 50% buff. In fact, I'm actually doing it even without this 25% buff because, unfortunately, you know, it's actually bugged and it doesn't apply in Thaldraszus. And that's kind of what I mean. I'm specifically going to be doing things within Thaldraszus without the full buff. And the reason why I'll be doing that, I don't think I can get Vapor Form in time. I don't need to, somebody got it, thankfully. Yeah, the reason I'm going to be doing things within Valdrakken is because, like I said, it's a roughly 40-minute long questline. And it took me, I think in one of my testing runs, it took me 36 minutes to get the entire thing done. And admittedly, I wasn't going at like a breakneck, super-duper fast speedrun pace. So it is entirely possible that I managed to shave off some of that time. I'm also going to play things really aggressively here. And I'm going to chain pull this. However, this is actually probably not too bad considering I have, you know, Divine Soul. Divine Soul is just really broken and obviously scales exponentially. The more mobs you have in the pull, the better Tears Enforcer will do. As you can see there, yeah, Avenger Shield, Tears Enforcer did ridiculous damage, so because there's like a group of 10 mobs, you're getting increased splash damage. So that's really, really nice. That actually made that pull ridiculously speedy. But yeah, so my point is, it is entirely possible that I might be able to get the entirety of the Thaldraszus questline that I want to get done within the 30-minute time frame. Here's kind of one of the problems with that, though. There are a few other things on top of the questline that I'm going to need to do within Thaldraszus, and I'm going to need the 50% experience buff for those activities. Namely, I might do more, I'm not 100% sure, but profession experience. Now, this isn't 100% confirmed. It's one of those things where, you know, somebody in my Discord told me that they tested it, and they found that profession experience is actually properly scaling now with experience buffs, because what was happening before is profession experience gave you a set amount of XP up to like a certain point. So if you happen to get any additional, and actually I can use gun shoes here, yeah, it actually saves a decent amount of time. Gun shoes for the win. You can still use them in dungeons in older content, which is quite nice. So what ends up happening in the, like, older version, which I don't know if that has changed or not, is whenever you would get, like, big experience modifiers, because Profession XP is obviously really good from Dragonflight, all you would do is you would speed up the process. So you would hit that experience cap much faster than if you had just done it without the experience buff. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Obviously that means you get it done faster, and if you're getting it done faster, you're saving time, and you're also saving money that you would have otherwise had to spend on recipes and whatnot. And of course, for these speedruns, like, money, especially, like, at that cost, is really no concern. Like, if it's a shit ton of gold, sure, but we're talking, like, you save maybe a few thousand gold tops if you have, like, experience buffs. But entire point, what I was saying, is somebody in my Discord told me that it seems like that has been changed. So now you actually do benefit from experience modifiers on your crafting XP, which, if that is true, and like I said, I haven't had time to test it, but I trust them. They've given me a few good tips in the past from their testing, so I'm like, alright, I'm willing to at least, like, put some faith in this person, what they said. That would mean that I would want to be doing my profession quests and crafting stuff within the Thaldraszus Dreamsurge. And I'm gonna just try to focus, because I want to see if these people are going to re-queue after, especially because one of these rogues is actually kind of doing damage. So I'm going to re-queue for a time-walking dungeon. Oh, they're accepting? That would be nice. Now, I don't like to do pre-made groups for this, but hey, if people are... Fuck yeah. People are willing to do that and just instantly re-queue. Definitely down to do that. Saves me a little bit of time and lets me stack this buff up faster. Did I hit 61 off that? No. I'm close. Okay, so that's actually a nice little bit of good RNG at the start. Throne of the Tides is not too long. It's a solid one. Really, the one you don't want to see is Stonecore. If I get Stonecore, I'm still going to do it, of course. It's not horrible, but Stonecore is just kind of rough. It's one of those where, like, a ton of people tend to die doing it because they don't really know what they're doing. And accidentally drag the mobs out of my consecration. Whoops. Gonna breath. I missed the silence on that. Yeah, okay. Should be fine. Then I can use my Blessing of Freedom. I will still kind of need to focus. One of the other slightly problematic things with a run like this, we also barely missed the elevator. That's just complete RNG. That's unfortunate. It's actually like a 2-minute time loss, I think, maybe. Oof. Don't love that. Yeah, so one of the other issues with this is because the run, in theory, could be very fast. Yeah, I can't even start that trash early. We just gotta wait. Unfortunate. Yeah, it's at the top right now. So that, yeah, that's like over a minute of time loss just due to RNG. I think that was like the worst possible elevator RNG we could have gotten. Oh, okay. I'm gonna relax. I can't freak myself out. The reality of a lot of this stuff is it's just, you know, it's not under my control. It's complete RNG. I need to just accept that and not get frustrated at, you know, like, what's the Serenity Prayer, right? Accept the things you cannot change. Just whatever. But, what was I saying? Yeah, so I want to do the crafting stuff in there. And the crafting thing, it takes like 5 minutes, give or take, but that is why I'm giving like a 40-minute estimate for the entire questline within Thaldraszus, and I only have 30 minutes on the experience buff, and obviously I want to give myself like at least an additional 5-minute wiggle room if something goes wrong. I don't want to catastrophically fuck up and then suddenly I lose the 75% experience buff for stuff that I really need it for. That would completely screw my run over more so than anything else. Which means, all that to say, the only real downside of not having the 75% buff is that after I do these time walking dungeons, assuming I have time before it's active, I'm going to be starting the Thaldraszus quests. I'm going to wait for them to, yeah, cast Healing Wave. That didn't silence? I guess it wasn't the first target. There you go. Prop Heli is, like, kind of ridiculously good for these types of dungeons, because, you know, if you've watched a bunch of my speedruns, you probably know that, you know, for any super serious runs, I use Guardian Druid. And I still would have, I do have War Mode enabled, right? Okay, yeah, and it is, yeah, it's a 20% bonus, that is kind of the reason I'm checking. That's the reason I'm playing this Paladin in particular for this specific run. Now, if I wanted to get a Alliance Guardian Druid set up in time before I started this run, like, in theory, maybe I could have done that, but that's just one of those things where within my limited amount of time, I actually have this character from a speedrun that I did, 10 to 60, like, a few weeks ago. It was, like, it was a Ret Pally run. And, you know, obviously the original run was a Ret Pally, but this is just completely unrelated, so I'm doing this as Prot, which is, let's face it, faster. Prot is just kind of ridiculous for leveling in general. And I think when it comes to, like, open world content, let me make sure this rogue, this guy's locked out, whatever, he's not doing that much damage anyway, it's not really that big of a deal. Yeah, so for world content and that kind of stuff in general, I do think that, wait, is everybody just AFK? What is going on? Okay, this kind of tilts me, because, like, you know, I get that not everybody's trying to speedrun dungeons like I am, but I think literally just going, yeah, the healer just decided to fall asleep, maybe he DC'd. I don't know. I do think just going AFK in the middle of a dungeon, especially without saying anything. I'm gonna be surprised if we complete this dungeon before my lust cools down. Was he typing that message? And because he stopped to type out that message, he just stopped healing the group? Man, hugs are weird. Okay, well, I was gonna try to Avenger Shield that other mob and group it up, and I got clipped by this, and I might be fucked here. That was close. Yeah, can't get hit by this tornado because, fortunately, the healer's asleep. So I just forgot that I'm playing now a res class. I have not played Paladin a lot in Dragonflight, I'm going to be honest. I completely forgot I could do that. So, there we go. At least I remembered in time. That freaked me out a little tiny bit. Okay. I'm just gonna send Divine Soul here. I did pick the Divine Toll. Oh, I haven't taken that talent yet. I'm going to take the Divine Toll shoots out like every few seconds. I normally take Reduced Divine Toll cooldown for like regular 10 to 60 leveling, because I think being able to do like larger pulls like every so often is just generally more efficient. Let's get this done. And then while I run back to the entrance, I can equip... Whoa, do I want to destroy the item? Hello, game, stop trying to fuck me. I don't know why it did that. That would have been really bad if I just accidentally destroyed one of my items. I'm going to do double Glacial Fury. I'm going to Buzzing Rune to overwrite my... yeah, okay. It's there, it's just not showing on the little buff tooltip. I can move my drums, I can move my potion now that I'm 61, because that's the requirement for all of those. Okay. They're here. I'm also just going to pop Sentinel, but, you know... all my main cooldowns here. This is honestly the hardest part of the dungeon. The final boss is really not difficult whatsoever. I don't know what this healer's doing. Okay. We're starting. Hopefully they can make it in. Oh, they barely made it in. Fuck yeah. Alright. I did consider using Word of Glory on that mage, but honestly, they were all super low. I wasn't sure which one would die, and I figured it would be better to just kind of continue blasting the mobs. Okay, so enough explaining generally about the run. I need to start thinking about how I'm actually going to handle this. I think I can just send Divine Soul here. I'm not really going to need it for a little bit. Okay, so... I definitely want to get the 30% XP buff. As it stands, I don't know if I can get that within 10 minutes. Just gonna be tricky. I mean, there's not really a whole lot that I can do. Yeah, I don't really think there's anything that I can do to, like, I want the entire experience buff. I'm not just gonna not get the 30% time walking buff. So I think, as it stands, what I kind of just need to do is continue doing time walking dungeons, and just bank on being able to do the entire questline in under 30 minutes, so I can get the entire thing into the 75% buff window. Oh, the filthiness stains me. Love that line. Okay, face the Sapper. Most people are going to that one, so I'm just going to go over here to burn this down as quickly as possible. At this stage, every second counts here. And then Azamat. Redrop my Consecration. Probably not going to be hitting him, but it's fine. Your water. This dungeon's going to be interesting. Time walking. Alright. The moment I exit combat, I need to immediately re-queue. Go, 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 go. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Man, you get stuck in combat for quite a while here. It's not letting me requeue. Hello? Game? Wow, that took a while. Alright. I think the only thing I haven't gotten myself buffed with is fried bonefish. 12 years pretty fast. Okay. I can do a gigantic pull here, and that should work out pretty well. Just gonna pull everything on top of the boss. Stuns are brutal. Spend defensives. Nice thing is, said AoE is exponential, so it's worth it, even if it is very spooky. I tried to do very large pulls in here the other day when I was doing my attempted Demon Hunter speedrun. You know, same general idea. And these stuns are brutal. There's so many random things in this dungeon that stun you. It's not very fun. Let me tell you. Try to take care of this guy. You need to just jump over that mine. Just eat that damage, because I don't want this slowing me down. And I'm gonna gun shoes here. Yeah, this is the pull that I died on the other day. Especially because I was LOS, but I have Sentinel here, so... yeah, that stun got me. And then I died within this window. Oh, that rogue almost ate it. But there we go. That's the nice thing about Prop Paladin. They are so much tankier compared to Demon Hunter, especially when, you know, I didn't even have time to get meta up before that stuff came out. Alright, and then we mount up, and there's Sunfire, or Starfall, I mean, pulled that. I'm just gonna go straight for the boss, because that's fine, we just pull. Not a big deal, they can just fight it to us. It's not like there's really any great mount spots anyway. Ideally, it's just going to pull into us, so I'm just going to try to bring the boss back here. We can... I got polymorphed, but I can still use Blessed Hammer. That's interesting. How that works. Okay, luckily it looks like it didn't actually pull any of the other mobs. The ones surrounding it, we shouldn't have used. This should drop us out of combat, then I can immediately mount up. God, I cancel it 1 second too early. Immediately mount up and start going. I'm gonna take Eye of Tyr here. Yeah, rhyme that. That on just Shift T. You know what, I want that on Shift T, that on E. I'm just gonna run through this. Throw an Avenger Shield back, that way I get some threat on it, and it doesn't immediately go on the DPS. I think some of them might pull as they get closer. Yeah, this should be good. And... sure I'm getting do Light Forged Racial. Still pretty good damage. I know it got nerfed, and a lot of people are like, oh, Light Forged Racial is dead, because Light Forged Draenei Prop Pally used to be, like, insanely broken. But that's actually really not too bad. Okay. If I'm ridiculously lucky here, one thing that could happen is I still could get ridiculously lucky setup that I said before, where I get, you know, double experience buffs. Or rather, it would, that was a perfectly timed level up. Love to see that. Yeah, so I could end up, you know, walking into Thaldraszus and seeing that the next option is the full buff window. Who knows? Hard to say for certain, though. So Ogre's getting blasted. I should also be pulling this with the boss. Honestly, I'm not sure why I didn't. Just kind of forgot. I'm trying to think of what dungeon I kind of want to see after this. I know it's not Stonecore. I guess End Time can be kind of fast. Yeah. Because the buff's about to be active. Really close on time here. I'm honestly debating, do I think I go for it. Like, do I just YOLO with the Dreamsurge and just take the 50% bonus? You know what I think I do? I think I don't actually re-queue with these guys. Nothing against them, but what I need information. Because if I know for a fact that I'm getting the, you know, really good RNG of, like, 1 hour back-to-back XP buffs. Need to make sure everybody's up here. What are they doing? Okay, I'm not waiting for them. They're taking forever. I can just solo it at this point. Okay, nice. The Evoker got up here in time. Wait, did the mage... I think that's what happens. The mage died, and the Evoker was rezzing him. I didn't even notice. I'm, like, just so tunnel visions on getting this done as fast as possible. Okay. Yeah, I think right after this dungeon, I need to leave. I need to enter Thaldraszus. I need to check to see what the Dreamsurge buff is. And then, once I know for sure, that's when... This is, I believe, the final egg? That's when I can make my decision. And then I'll re-queue and start doing the quests. And... Okay, that's the last one. Sure. Not like there's not much I can do while he's eating everybody around. I can... Divine Toll snuck in there. Okay. And like before, just warning, since I will be entering Thaldraszus very soon, that means I am going to be getting the memory leak. So, yeah, I'm just going to leave instance group. And then we're going to check Thaldraszus and see. So, my voice is going to cut out. Well, actually, you're not going to hear that because on my recording, my voice is going to cut out, and then future Haraldin will kick in with some narration. And there's going to be some minor frame rate issues. And here we go. So I'm just going to stop talking just to play it safe, and future Haraldin will take it from here. Alright, so I have roughly 5 minutes of time to fill here by talking. And yeah, I think the main thing that I kind of want to explain, because I don't really go into detail on this later on, is what I'm going to be doing as far as routing goes. Like, why am I doing Thaldraszus? Which I have said in multiple cases in the past that Thaldraszus is the absolute worst zone for Dreamsurges, bar none. And that is partially still true. Thaldraszus is still a pretty terrible zone for Dreamsurges, but there is one particular questline That is not the quest line I'm doing now, so you can also, right now in the recording, see the memory leak is already starting to kick in. I just decided I was going to, start doing the voiceover a little bit early before I, cut that off. Good decision on my part, I feel. And the frame rate issues are, a little bit annoying, but it's not really that big of a deal. But the quest line that I'm doing now in this recording, so you can see I go to the top of the tower, I pick this stuff up. This is the basic start of the Thaldraszus campaign. I got a nice little goblin glider off there, too. Pretty cool. But the thing about this particular questline is it actually is also a prereq to something that is even more broken. So this questline in general is something that I used to include in the leveling route. Not recently, because the reality of 60 to 70 leveling is that it has just gotten faster and faster over, the last year or so. At the start, what was my initial, campaign record? 4.5 hours, and there were people who, even, on the beta, with, pre-made characters with full best in slot gear, they were able to get characters done in, 3 hours or something like that. Some people with optimized groups and things like that managed to get it even faster. But I think my campaign time was about 4.5 hours, and my absolute best possible time that I got with no special patch content things, just base launch version Dragonflight, I think I had Darkmoon Faire, was 2 hours and 59 minutes, quite literally. It's my Dark Iron Dwarf Windwalker Monk speedrun. And I'm pretty sure I actually do this questline in that run. Because back then, when you have 3 hours and, you don't have any of the special shenanigans we have now with 75% experience modifiers, you just kind of need to do what's most efficient. And at that point, it was a combination of multiple things. It was Waking Shores with some dungeons, and then bits and pieces of Venaran Plains. Obviously, a ton of Azurspan stuff. That's where you made up a bulk of your experience. But then also Thaldraszus was pretty good, because this initial snippet of the campaign was fairly solid. The stuff in Valdrakken kind of sucks, you can see here. All the little RP things, you have to sit here and wait for an extended period of time to actually get it to work properly. That's obviously a little bit slow. But the quest that you get right after this, where you have to go to whatever the name of that place is, Southhold Gate, that's honestly not too bad. And after you complete that section of the campaign, that relatively efficient part, you get to some good stuff that I normally wouldn't actually do as part of the routing, but there's some little bugs which I will explain later. So now that we've at least established why I'm doing this stuff, I'll continue talking. You'll notice here that I was initially I checked to see, is there any of the, Dreamsurge buffs active, because now I'm finally out of Thaldraszus, and I thought, well, in theory, I should be able to see it. It was not appearing on my map, for whatever reason, I don't know. So I figured, okay, well, I kind of need the intel on whether or not the all buff thing is going to happen. Because, as I mentioned before, if I want the perfect speedrun, I need to make sure that I have the 50% buff into the all buff, or vice versa, the all buff into 50%. At the start of the run, I started it with no buff, but I knew that the 50% was coming out soon, and then the 50% buff hits, and that now there is a chance still that even though I didn't plan for it, I get the all buff thing. And I believe it's been a few hours since I recorded this run. It is currently, for the record, 8:50 a.m., and I finished the run at 7 or something. I believe I mentioned earlier kind of that I was planning on checking that, but I don't know 100%. But point being, I had to go and see what the buff was, because if I had gotten 50% back-to-back, that would have kind of changed the way I routed things. I could have immediately done a time-walking dungeon. Unfortunately, as you can see here, that's not what happened. I checked on my Demon Hunter, did not get the buff. I was not so lucky. and then I just swapped back over to my Paladin. And now, because I did restart my game and I'm out of Eldraken, the memory leak problem was temporarily solved, so we are going back to Past Heraldon here for a little bit, but I'll continue explaining the questline in like 5 minutes, because we're eventually going to cut back to Future Heraldon, so see you then. Okay, so current moments right now, Heraldon speaking again. Gonna kill Akrasant, since he's actually in a really ideal position. Yeah, unfortunately, no Cigar, did not get lucky with the buff timings. What can you do? I kind of figured. It's a long shot to actually get that to line it up anyway. I've been trying for literally over 24 hours at this point, and it's not happening. I gotta accept that. Like, statistically, it's impossible. And at this point, I don't even know if there's enough time left before, like, server reset and the zone timings change for that to even occur. Which is kind of one of the problems, right? You might think, oh, well, just wait to do the run until you get the perfect RNG, right? Like, why would you just do all this setup and then give up and not even wait for the perfect RNG? The problem is, as it stands, it is quite literally impossible for me to get this setup ever again, right? Like, it either just happens or it doesn't, because I need to have Darkmoon Faire. I need to have Darkmoon Faire, I need to have Turbulent Timeways, I need to have Thaldraszus Dreamsurge, all lining up in the exact same week. And I don't think that exact combination of things, it won't even ever happen again, like, in history. So that was only, like, the last 2 days of this week when all of those things lined up. So yeah, it's not even like I can just wait and have that happen. It's just either it happens and I'm, like, happy, or it doesn't and I'm, depressed, right? And it didn't happen. I've been checking. It just has not occurred. So we go with what we can do. And the end result is that, while I don't have the full 30% Turbulent Timeways buff, I am just not going to be able to do, like, at this point I have 20 minutes to the entire quest. I don't even know if that's enough time. I might actually kind of be fucked. I can do some of the quest line, I think, in 20 minutes. Maybe if I'm really fast. I don't know. This is going to be, honestly, one of the toughest speedrun challenges I think I've ever done, getting all of this stuff complete in such a short time frame. Maybe I should have just not done that third time walking dungeon and just gone with a 10% buff. I mean, if I manage to get this to work, obviously 5% XP is pretty significant, so it will end up being worth it. And, like, technically you could argue that maybe I shouldn't be doing these other rares, but what I'm going to try to do is just do the Thaldraszus route the same way that I normally do it. Not trying to act like I don't have time. Well, I don't know. 20 minutes is definitely... it's a lot of time. It's not like the questline is extremely long. We'll have to see. But it does mean that there's just simply no way that I'll be able to do the 4th time walking dungeon. I'll get it done later on, so basically the moment this buff fades, and I'm done with Thaldraszus completely, then I can, actually going to use a potion here. The moment this buff fades, then I'm going to do my next time walking dungeon and knock out a few other sources of experience. Few things I need to grab here. So, where's the coiled rope? There's supposed to be coiled rope here. I did not pick up the quest for the coiled rope. That would explain why. And honestly, so now that I've kind of explained my thoughts in the moment, even though I technically don't have a memory leak, I'm going to leave this in just cause, but I am going to just cut back to Future Heraldon, because since I gotta edit this anyways, well, I do normally like to do all of, like, the talking and stuff in real time. I think the reality of this run right now is I can't be sitting here and trying to, like, split my thoughts between, am I, like, talking and discussing, like, my plans with, the viewers, and am I actually focusing? This is so difficult, I just need to focus. So you will go back to Future Heraldon in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so obviously I don't normally like having to do stuff like that. It's kind of one of those weird situations where I've talked about this before, but generally speaking, whenever I'm doing speedruns, I kind of like to have the in-the-moment narration. It's something that I think makes it more fun, actively commenting as it goes on, like, my thoughts on different situations. And also it's fun when something goes really well. Like, I remember there's one comment where it, like, really stuck with me. And on my Cultier Druid speedrun, somebody left a comment saying something to the effect of, like, I wish I was excited about anything in my life as Haraldin was when he gets, like, a good dungeon, or something like that. I forget the exact wording. But I remember reading that comment, and it just, like, made me laugh. And it kind of shows to me that a lot of people really do enjoy that aspect of the speedruns. So I do apologize that for at least a decent portion of it, you won't have that. But it's kind of one of those things where if I know I'm editing it already, then I figure I might as well do this. But that's also kind of one of the reasons why, for stuff like streams, I've always said I'm never going to live stream, like, a world record attempt. And obviously this wasn't live streamed, this was done offline at 5 in the morning or something. But at least if I am doing one of these super serious runs and I need time to focus up and just buckle down and get stuff done, I have that option. And I don't usually like to invoke that option, but here I figured it was kind of for the best. And it's just because I think it's kind of surprising for a lot of people, like, how much focus this requires. But when every second counts, and in this case, more so than really any speedrun I've done before, every second counts, because I need to maximize my time using the buff. But when every second counts, it becomes really hard to just focus on every single little detail. And you're inevitably, while, like, juggling, kind of talking and, narrating your own thoughts and stuff like that, and focusing on the run, like, little things are going to slip through the cracks, and you're just going to kind of forget. And a lot of times it's not, like, a big deal, which is one of the reasons why whenever I'm doing runs on streams and stuff, it's really not a concern, because if I screw up, like, who cares? And that's, I think, like, on last weekend's live stream, I had a Demon Hunter run, which I believe I mentioned at the start here, because I started this video off showing the Demon Hunter run that on the Demon Hunter, where I mentioned how I tried to do that run and everything failed and it went miserable. I think, for context, that character was level 65 when the timer was at, like, an hour and 10 minutes. And as you will see here, my character was almost max level by that point in time. Just so many different things went wrong in that speedrun. And I'm kind of mad at myself for even attempting that, because I ended up spending so much time, like, doing prep work and whatnot for it, that I just ended up being frustrated when things didn't go well. And that's, like, not even really the point of doing those types of speedruns. So I shouldn't have bothered in the first place. But there were so many little mistakes I made just because I was trying to read chat, and that always just frustrates me. Anyways, that was a side tangent. Now back to actually talking about the routing. So as you can see here, I just reached Thaldraszus after finishing the introduction stuff to, like, the campaign. Now, from there on, the campaign itself returns to, like, the Chromie stuff, but there is a breadcrumb quest picked up by Captain Drine when you turn that stuff in. That sends you to this quest, which, like, what is the name of it? I've done this so infrequently. It's Chaos and Commotion. That one, right? Yeah, so Chaos and Commotion is the breadcrumb for the Misty Vale subzone. And the Misty Vale subzone is not the one that I said is, like, really good, but it is another prereq. So the order in which you need to do this stuff to unlock the really broken quest chain that I've mentioned and that we will be seeing towards the end of this run is, first, all of that campaign stuff that you just saw me do, and then the moment you pick it up off Captain Drine, you grab this quest, and then it directs you over there. You'll notice here I'm setting my Hearthstone to Thaldraszus. I technically should have done this earlier, but I forgot. It is still a time save for me to do it now, though, and you'll see me utilize that later. Now, the interesting thing about Misty Vale is I actually had a lot of people early on in Dragonflight suggest to me that I do this quest. A lot of people, before, the new bugged questline, tried to make Thaldraszus work, and Thaldraszus just doesn't work, because, like, Misty Vale, this questline is not that great. As you will see, there is a decent amount of roleplay. The quest density is, like, fine, but it's not that good, and the amount of travel time it takes to just go to Misty Vale and then go all the way back kind of sucks. And at least up until patch 10.1, there was no follow-up for Misty Vale. You just do this and that's it. Obviously now, as I mentioned, there is a follow-up. It's a prereq, but that's kind of one of the interesting things about the questline in question that we'll be seeing, is, for whatever reason, the broken questline, and I say broken, I'm not entirely sure if it's, like, actually bugged. I'll discuss my thoughts on, like, the questline when we get to it, like the one that gives ridiculous experience, and that kind of drives this entire route. That one, I have mixed thoughts on it. It's good, but I don't know if it's intended or not. We'll have to see what Blizzard does about it. I think they should keep it, though, and that's a topic I'll discuss as we get on. I have about, like, 15 more minutes to, talk here, and then even later on in the video, there's going to be another, like, 10-minute gap where you'll have to deal with future Haralded. But this particular questline, and just most of Thaldraszus, it's kind of in this weird spot. And this is, I think, still an important thing to discuss as far as, like, leveling efficiency goes, because I'm sure that a question that I'm going to get asked a lot is, outside of this really broken questline, is other stuff in Thaldraszus worth doing? And honestly, I really don't think so. The only reason I'm even doing these quests is because, like I said, it's a forced prereq to unlock a really insane questline. There are a lot of other okay questlines that I've seen people recommend. There's like a spa questline, and I tried the spa questline, and like I tried it at the start of Dragonflight. Obviously, I tried every single questline, but then like every few months, people will say like, "Have you tried XYZ thing?" And then I'll be like, "Okay, fuck it, I'll go back and try it," because of course people swear to me up and down, "No, I swear it's so good. I tried it," and I go, I test it, and like using my actual testing methods, right, where I compare everything one-to-one, because, obviously you can't, if you test one questline with, like, full rested experience and, like, a bunch of XP buffs, and you test another with none of that, yeah, you're gonna get skewed results. So I test them all, like, in a vacuum, like, with control and stuff, and I'm like, no, it's not efficient. And the entire, like spa questline, which is one of the classic ones, I tried it, it's just not worth it. And then sometimes people will say, well, part of the questline is efficient. And that's another thing that a lot of people seem to misunderstand. A lot of people, basically, they will fly to a location where a questline starts. They will, presumably, I'm guessing this based on the numbers people provided me, which just don't make sense, in actual realistic settings. And I'm guessing they just, like, start their timer, do, like, a handful of quests, and then just stop their timer. And then they just kind of take those individual time segments and compare them one-to-one, when like that you really can't evaluate leveling efficiency like that, because a lot of leveling is the travel time, right? And that's something that people routinely underestimate, and it's a bit of a weird subject, because I know a lot of people have different ways in which they level. A lot of people, if they are questing, they will just kind of, like, put themselves on a flight point. Obviously, with dragon riding, it's not really as much of a thing. But especially for low-level zones, they'll throw themselves on a flight point. So, if there was a theoretical 30-minute flight point, that would obviously be required to make something, like, to reach a zone. There's no 30-minute flight point, right? But let's just take a hypothetical. There is a really efficient zone, and in order to access it, you are forced to take a 30-minute flight path just to get there. Well, by default, it's almost immediately inefficient for questing. Because, really, if you were trying to do quests in any reasonable sequence, flying all the way out to the zone for 30 minutes where you're gaining no experience for all those 30 minutes, just for a, presumably, by this metaphor, a fairly solid questline, not like, you instantly level up to max. And for people who aren't leveling, I guess, the same way I am, like in a speedrunning format, they may argue, well, I don't really care that there's a 30-minute flight point, because I'm just going to AFK. Well, it happens, and then I'll come back or whatever. And, I get that a lot, and it's kind of course, hard to, like, really make that comparison, because, like, everybody levels differently. So I always try to evaluate my stuff in terms of, like, if you were to just sit down and say, okay, I'm going to knock out 60 to 70 or whatever in an afternoon, playing continuously, what do you do to level up? And I think really that's the only fair way to evaluate it, It's like, sure, there are little tricks that you could do. One of the things that I will be recommending in my Dreamsurge guide is that if you aren't in any serious rush like I am with my speedruns, just don't level whenever the 75% buff is down. Like, why would you? You know, if you are willing to take your time, just when the buff is up, level your characters in that zone. When the buff is down, don't. And that is kind of one of the other reasons why Azure Span, I think, will end up being just a ridiculously strong Dreamsurge zone, because even in my Fury Warrior run, I did not have the 75% buff 100% of the time. But if you were to only be questing in Azure Span with the 75% buff, well, that's one of the nice things about that zone. There's so much to do in Azure Span that you can just always have things that you can run with that buff, and it ends up being hyper efficient. Whereas kind of one of the problems with Thaldraszus is even with the 75% buff, a lot of those quest lines kind of suck. And that was kind of the entire point that I'm trying to make. In a vacuum, those quest lines in Thaldraszus are terrible. Like, even when I tested them early on in Dragonflight. But a lot of people are going to ask me, well, after I finish these quest lines, should I continue doing other things in Thaldraszus, even if it's in the Dreamsurge? And honestly, I don't think so. I genuinely think that most of the Thaldraszus questlines, when 75% faster, are still slower than, like, the average Azure Span questline. Azure Span is just that fucking good. It's a really, really, really good zone. Now, also, cutting off my random tangent, you'll notice here, after I turned in the last quest in the Misty Vale questline, I picked up a follow-up quest from Captain Dryan called Cause Without a Rebel. And that is what I'm doing right now. And this quest has a decent amount of RP. And one of the funny things that you'll notice about this quest is there are multiple points throughout the process where it'll seem crazy that I'm even doing this questline. It has all of the hallmarks of a ridiculously inefficient questline. And this is kind of one of the reasons I overlooked it early on, because I think I did this quest a while ago when it first came out, and the first time I did it, I thought it was a max level only quest, which I think it is. At least that's what I think it was supposed to be. But you may have noticed there, I got like a lot of experience just from that very first quest that I turned in, and that trend is going to keep happening. I did the math on it, and it's like the worst quest in this chain gives roughly 5 times the normal amount of quest experience. So a lot of times anyone who's familiar with leveling will probably know that I always say wanted quests, like, for instance, Dragonflight, Crowjack the Shore Prowler, the one that you pick up in Euskara. Those quests are really good, because they give extra experience and are generally really easy to complete, provided you know what you're doing, because, you know, it's just kill one mob. Also, as a quick note for what's going on in the run right now, I noticed that I only have 5 minutes left of the 50% increased experience, and I wanted to test that theory that I had heard about the buff applying to crafting experience. So the problem with the 3 quests that I just picked up is that outside of one of them, which I will end up completing in a few minutes, the rest of the quests are like ridiculously slow. It takes forever to complete them. They are still worth doing because, as I mentioned, they give 5 to 10% more experience compared to a regular quest, if not more. It's like actually just kind of ridiculous how much experience these quests give. But they take a while to complete, longer than I think 5 minutes, actually. And I end up getting fairly bad RNG, which means there was no chance that I was going to be able to finish most of these. So since I knew I wasn't going to be able to fit these quests into the 50% window anyways, I figure, well, I may as well just make sure that I get the crafting experience done within the XP buff. And I'm not 100% sure on the numbers here, but I believe that the suggestion made by that person in my Discord was correct, because it does seem like I got roughly a full level from, what was that, 65 to 66. And in the past, I was only getting about 75% of the way from 60 to 61. So based on that, I do think it is probably safe to say that the crafting experience is affected by the modifiers. I haven't like sat down with my calculator and like actually mathed it out, but just on anecdotal evidence here, I like, eyeballing it, that seems to be right, that it is 50% faster compared to what I am used to it being. So I am glad that I took this little detour to get that done. And then here I'm going back and doing these quests. But one of the other things that you'll notice about this quest is there's like 3 here where it's like you have to kill a mob and loot an item. You have to take down 5 propaganda posters. And then this one where you have to capture 8 rebels. And the way this quest works is you have to channel the extra action button into one of these rebel NPCs, and it has like a 30% chance, roughly, it's low, of actually capturing the rebel. You can see I actually got one there. And in so many other cases, you'll channel into them, and they'll just get a damage buff, and then start hitting you harder, and you won't actually get quest progress for it. This quest honestly feels like Baby's first questing line or whatever, and I feel like it was probably made by some intern as a side project, because nobody in their right mind who actually designs World of Warcraft quests thinks that capturing 8 mobs by channeling an item into them that has a cooldown, and it's only 1 time use per mob, right? So you have to pull extra mobs to get this channel, and it's not guaranteed, and it from my experience, more often than not fails. This is just like vanilla era quest design right here in terms of how slow and inefficient it is. So if this did not give ridiculous experience numbers, it would not be worth it at all. I want to make that clear. However, while we're on that subject, I do want to quickly touch upon something. So, I have seen this kind of information spreading around. I've seen more and more people discover this questline recently. I only just found out about it like a little over a week ago, or when I say found out about it, I found out just how broken it is. A few people have been telling me to try it out for like about a month now, and I've kept putting it off because I'm like, it can't really be that efficient, right? And then when I looked at the numbers, I was like, wait, hold up, this is actually really broken. And I finally tested it about 1 week ago, like right after I finished my Fury Warrior run, and that's when I kind of realized the potential that it had for actual speedruns and just speed leveling in general. These numbers are insane. And also, just to quickly clear up a question that I'm sure I will get asked, yes, this is still worth doing even without the Thaldraszus Dreamsurge. Thaldraszus Dreamsurge obviously makes this even more broken, but it is not required. And honestly, I don't even know if the Thaldraszus Dreamsurge is required for like casual questing, because as I've said before, all 3 of the other zones, Azurspan especially, but even Waking Shores and Onaran Plains have better side quests that you'll get like more value from. Whereas this quest is just so broken, it's going to be efficient no matter how you slice it. You're still going to want to do it. You can also see here, I actually did just get offered, or well, everybody in North America at this point, just got offered the all buffs option. And barely off getting the perfect run there, which, you know, in the moment I was actually very excited. It actually doesn't end up mattering. Minor spoiler alert, I end up just finishing the run before I even get the all buff option. That's just how fast things ended up being. But, like, I guess in hindsight, I am slightly salty that I waited 24 hours and then the game just barely avoids giving me the perfect setup of 50% into all buffs. It had to space it out just ever so slightly. This run could have been godlike, and instead it was just insanely good. And you know what? I'll take insanely good. Insanely good is nice. You can't really go wrong with that. But it definitely could have been better. But anyway, so we are rapidly drawing into the point where I will do the final time walking dungeon, where present-day Haraldin will be narrating for that. There is one last 5 to 10 minute-ish section at the very end of the run, where, of course, I'm back in Thaldraszus, so I have a memory leak, so I will be talking then. And the main thing that I kind of want to talk about for that section of the run is kind of generally my thoughts on this questline. Because I think this questline is great, it's going to help people level up their alts a lot, and while it is likely bugged, I think Blizzard should keep it in, and towards the end of the run, you're going to get to hear me explain my reasoning why. Anyways, back to present-day Haraldin. Alright, I'm back. Okay, so obviously I'm sure that future Haraldin did, a great job narrating, so can we all give a round of applause for future Harlden, whenever that'll be, probably 2 hours from the time of recording this. Extremely exhausted because at this point he's been trying to get this shit done for a very long time, and, he's probably just subsisting off coffee and, like, a freshly made bagel. And, he's trying his heart out, God bless him. So now, I think we're in the clear for memory leaks, and oh man, what a fucking plot twist. The all buff option appears right after the experience thing fades. Now, this still isn't the perfect RNG I talked about earlier, because obviously this is going to lose like a few minutes. And technically I lost a tiny bit of efficiency because, well, I love this dungeon. I love Blackrock Caverns. What did I even die to, man? There's just so many random trash abilities. Like, I was stunned, and then I just took, like, 1 shot worth of damage. This dungeon sucks so much. We're fine. The only thing I really lost there is, I lost my Darkmoon Faire buff, but I have top hats that I bought, so I'm actually fine. I think that guy might be too close. Oh, no, they were out of range. Nice. I refreshed my Veiled Augment rune, my flask doesn't fall off, my weapon rune doesn't fall off, so the only thing at this point that I'm missing is my Bear Tartar, which I can just go ahead and refresh. Oh, yeah, they got out of range. Nice. But the nice thing about Bear Tartar, and just generally refreshing buffs right now, is this stuff isn't going to despawn. The fact that the entire group lived that gives me hope that they'll actually be able to survive the second boss too, and do that correctly. But since Raz does like a bit of RP anyways, you can't actually speed that up. In fact, if you try to speed this up, sometimes it'll bug out and brick the dungeon. So I'm not even going to try to do that. Just going to sit back and let Raz do his thing. But yeah, so this is definitely an interesting situation that we have here, because what this does mean, and I'm sure as many people notice, like, I've probably, Future Harlden probably talked about that a little bit, but goddamn, yeah, see, this is, yep, you fucked it, man, you fucked it. See, this is what happens when you try to speed it up. Raz bugs out and he doesn't one-shot it, and then you have to kill it manually. You got some impatient Andes over here. Like, thankfully, it didn't completely bug Raz out, so the entire dungeon isn't bricked, but, yeah, you can, like, literally make this dungeon uncompletable if you pull too fast. Raz will break, and then the bridge just becomes impassable. So, that was close. That's why you always stay back. That would have been a really shitty turnaround if that had actually happened. We're gonna just finish this mob off here, because otherwise it'll wrap around and pull a bunch of stuff, and then we can drop down. Yeah, so I did technically turn in a few quests earlier, and the only thing I really lose with that is the, I'm not benefiting from the extra 15% that I would have gotten if I had waited for, the full time walking buff to stack up. So not really a huge deal, and there's still a few more quests that I'll have to do there. So, effectively... Shit. My GTFO was really vocal there, probably for the best, because there's actually a chance that maybe I had... Death Knight left his pet on. Yeah, there's maybe a chance that if I wasn't paying attention I would have died to that. Hard to say for sure. Okay, let me just start soaking this line. This went behind me. It's weird. Should be fine. Just kick Dark Commands. Okay, one of them evolved, but that's okay, because it despawns the moment the boss dies. I'm going to tag these mobs. Then I'm going to go down here. I'm just trying to LOS wrap these around, and Divine Toll is such a broken ability. Fucking love it to death. Like, honestly, is there any ability in this game better than Divine Toll? It is just so fucking satisfying to press. I fucking love it. You still can't use Goblin Gliders in Time Walking dungeons. You can use Gunshoes outdoors in older dungeons, but you still can't use gliders. They have just been permanently disabled. That's sad. Back in the day, with, like, WoD challenge modes, you could do some really crazy shit. I need to make sure I go far enough. Yeah, there we go. Raz smash. Raz will jump down, leap through the bridge. We still need to single target this one. Yeah, so now the question becomes, because I obviously know what I'm going to be doing the moment that buff comes back. I'm beelining right for it. I actually think... Here, I'm going to get Karsh. Let's play it safe and get just a few stats. And always... Oh my god, I'm pressing all the wrong buttons. Little fun fact that's making this a little bit harder. I actually cut my finger pretty badly. Oh my god, what the hell? Oh, that's bad. That's really bad, actually. I must have had a really insane healer the last time I did this, and I don't think there's a way to skip here. I think we... Let's deal with the fire Ellies first. Shut up, Pansy. I've done that pull multiple times. I mean, I think the healer is just struggling here, which, you know, unfortunate. What can you do? There is a skip here, though, thankfully, so that's not really the end of the world. That should have been doable, but... Oh, well. That's only a very, very, very minor time loss, because, once again, I only lose Bear Tartar. Would have been nice, would have been faster, if he had been able to keep us alive through it, but... You can't expect everything out of Pug Healers. This dungeon is just brutal. They need to fix the tuning on this, I think, a little bit, because this one and Stonecore are just considerably harder than literally every single other Kata Time Walking dungeon. The scaling on here is just kind of problematic. Alright, since we don't have the elementals, I'm just gonna let it build up. Alright, 9 stacks? Sure. So when you do this, he takes increased damage. Obviously, he does more damage, which, you know, makes it a little bit problematic, but we don't think it's a big deal. Drag him back in here, and this should be enough. Yeah, sure, that's fine. It's maybe like a minute or two time loss. Honestly, though, it's like, it's kind of one of those funny things where at this point, minor time losses don't really matter because the run ends in like... The run ends in 25 minutes, kind of no matter how you slice it. So, effectively, there is no way that I'm going to, like, be able to... I mean, technically, I guess if I don't know. Basically, there is no source of experience in this game that would let me, hit, I'm struggling for the words. There's no source of experience in this game that would let me hit the word... I can't think. I can't think. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm really focused right now. And it's just... I usually like to do narration for these, and I genuinely just cannot even come up with words. I'm just, like, so panicked on making sure this goes well. Because I still fervently believe that sub 1 hour is theoretically possible. I think sub 1 hour would have to be Azure Span, though. Because while this Thaldraszus questline is good, I honestly don't think it's, like, really that broken with the Dreamsurges. Because the problem with this Dreamsurge stuff, right, is while it does amplify an already really strong questline, the rest of the stuff is just really not that good. So, I don't know, I kind of feel like it would almost just be better to get, let's let Raz take care of all those mobs. I genuinely feel it would be better to just get an Azure Span Dreamsurge and just benefit off that, and then you still do the Thaldraszus questline, maybe. It's really hard to say, though. I'm gonna try out, like, what week is it? It's the 17th. 17th is Mop Time Walking. Yeah, that's a little bit wonky. I'll have to see whether or not that's faster. Because, yeah, the issue with the Thaldraszus questline is there's so much stuff that you need to do beforehand that just isn't really that efficient, even with 75% additional experience, that while this questline is insane, I don't know. It does kind of dilute how valuable it is. And there's so much insanely good stuff in Azure Span. I think 75% on Azure Span is still probably better, assuming you got, like, you know, the Wombo combo and it's up for, like, 1 hour and stuff. And the question is, do you still do time walking? And I think you do. Right, there's the full buff. Now, the interesting thing. What's my Hearthstone at? My Hearthstone's off cooldown. Perfect. Yeah, that's... I wanted to make sure I did have my Hearthstone off CD. Take this in your home. And then I'm going to dollar on Hearth. And one thing that I have not actually done yet, I have not done my Darkmoon quests. And this may be a little bit cheesy, but hey, 30% additional experience on the Darkmoon quests. Normally I do them for every single speedrun anyway. I think this is going to give me a pretty sizable chunk. The only thing is, I don't know, I'm actually wondering, with the remaining quests in this questline, would I just be able to, like, hit max level? I actually don't even think I wait for the all buffs thing. Okay, we go to Old Dalaran. Because obviously, I would love 50% additional experience, and it would be even faster if I had that. But I actually think there's a chance I just say fuck it, and I just go anyway. I think I need to see how much the Darkmoon quest items give me, because I don't think they're going to give me that much. They're probably going to give me 1 level. And then, if I'm at, like, 1 level... Use Gunshoes here. Stuck in the tree. Okay, Gunshoes, then we'll Goblin Glider. And of course, I left these for later to make sure I benefit from the 30% experience bonus. I normally don't do that, but it's like, why not? It's free. I can't... Oh yeah, right, I already have the buff. I'm so used to coming in from that angle. We get all this stuff. Yeah, see, it's a lot, but I don't know. I don't know how much it actually is. Okay, we do the tailoring quest. And then mounts up. Then I have the cooking quest and like 1 or 2 more that I need to get done. And I can get the sage buff knocked out. Do I wait? Do I just send it? I don't. This is a tough decision. Go. I mean, I'm 2 levels away. And there's actually a considerable amount of quests in that chain. To the point where I think if I were to start it now and get like 25%, I can also, yeah, just get this. That's just 6% damage. Like, it's 2 buttons, why not? Yeb Nebel Gear. And drop my Thermal Anvil. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I think I just go for it. Initially, I was going to do quests in the Waking Shores, which, like, you know, if you didn't have the Turbulent Timeways, so you didn't have all the Time Walking XP and the Time Walking buff, that's what you'd want to do. But I think I just fucking go for it. Okay, so funny thing here is I actually ended up talking a little bit more before I realized that I was going to be cutting back to Future Harlden, but the memory leak thing is uncanny, right? Like, it just occurs at the most random times, and midway through that loading screen into Dragonflight, the audio just cuts out. I think it was, like, around here like when I'm flying towards Thaldraszus, where I like look at my OBS and I see that the audio is fucked, and I just like, oh my god, this memory leak thing again. And then I knew I was gonna have to cut it out, so I chopped the audio a little bit earlier. So, two quick notes on what stuff that I said earlier. My prediction was mostly correct. I mean, it's not really a fair prediction when, like, I'm the one doing it, right? I did end up recording this a few hours later with, you know, a fresh cup of coffee, which is now completely finished as I record this final 10-minute segment. And I did end up making a bagel, partially because it was, like, you know, the most efficient thing. I didn't really feel like making any other food, especially this early in the morning. Like, I'm not going to go and throw a pizza in the oven or something at 9 a.m., but I did have a bagel, so, you know, I was kind of correct in that prediction, which, like I said, not a hard prediction to make, considering I kind of already knew I was in the mood for a bagel when I was recording this initially. Anyways, the other thing is, I started to mention this in the middle of the Blackrock Caverns run, and then, like, I died almost instantly on, like, the third boss, and I just... Yeah, it was the third boss. And then I lost my train of thought and didn't finish. But yeah, I actually, for this entire run, I didn't even think about, like, how that would impact it. But I kind of cut my, like, pointer finger on my left hand, which is, like, one of the main fingers I use to press my keybinds. So pretty much this entire run, I have, like, you know, a little bandage on my finger, and it makes it, like, really hard to click my keys. So I ended up fat fingering keys a lot, because, like, getting little precise taps is hard when, like, you know, your finger is much larger than you're used to it being. And a lot of times I'd go to press 5, and then, like, you know, the edge of my little band-aid would hit the next key. Little subjects. So if you notice me, like, misclicking a bunch of keys, that's kind of why. And I started to bring that up earlier, and lost my train of thought, so I at least wanted to get that done with. But anyways, main thing that I want to talk about here, I'm not going to get too sidetracked. So, obviously this experience is insane. And I am currently level 68, but as you will see, just by doing these quests, and this is only this 25% increase, right? I don't even have the 75% buff for this. Imagine how ridiculous this would be if I had the 75% buff. But this is just with 25%, and these quests are single-handedly going to get me the final 2 levels. So it could do a whole heck of a lot more if you had additional modifiers on top of that. Now, as I started to mention before, I believe what has happened here is that this questline, Rebels Without Cause, was actually added in patch 10.1. That's not actually speculation. That is just I know for a fact, right? You can check it on Wowhead and stuff. I don't really know why they did it like that. It's also not really part of the campaign for Zaralek Caverns or anything. So I'm guessing what happened is they started making this questline at launch, and then they probably didn't have time to finish it, and, you know, whoever designed this questline or something probably wanted to finish up the story, so they just said, oh, we'll make it, like, part of the end game campaign, or whatever. And then they just kind of shoehorned this quest in there. You can see it does count as a campaign quest if you look at, like, the right side of my screen. So it is labeled as one, despite not actually being tracked as part of any of the actual, like, Dragonflight campaign stuff. It's just labeled as a campaign quest, but it's not part of it. It's a bit of a weird situation, for sure. This whole questline, everything about it is kind of odd in terms of, like, the situation surrounding it. But I think because it was labeled as a campaign quest, and because it was clearly meant to be more of, like, a max level thing, I kind of wonder if Blizzard initially intended this to be for level 70s only. And I should also note, to clear up a misconception I've seen floating around, as people have begun to discover this over the past week, a question that I've been asked a lot is whether you need to, like, start it, like, midway through the run. A lot of people seem to think it requires level 68. As far as I can tell, the misconception for it requiring level 68 is people looking on Wowhead, seeing the required level, and thinking that. All quests in Thaldraszus have a, like, in-game base requirement of 68, because that is the level of the zone. When you are in adventure mode, everything scales. That is not explicitly max level. This is not explicitly max level, so it scales down to 60. So you could, if you wanted to, start this quest immediately at level 60. I do it later only because I was trying to stack up the Time-Surge, or I keep calling it Time-Surge for whatever fucking reason. Dreamsurge, and, well, honestly, I mean, it might as well be called a Time-Surge. It is a mix of the Dreamsurge and the Timeways buff, but you know what I mean. I was waiting for both of those buffs to do this quest. But I could have done it immediately. And yeah, I really don't know what caused that. I want to say that because it was initially intended, so this is speculation on my part, right? I believe it was initially intended to be a max level quest, and probably something on the back end with how experience values are allocated for those quests. Like, just look at how much that quest for talking to Thaldraszus gives just 2 entire bars. It's ridiculous, right? That's about as much as, like, an elite quest for just talking to an NPC a little bit. And the actual quests give even more. But I believe that is what happened. Something on the back end with the experience values got screwed up because it was intended to be for higher levels, and then it ended up being usable while leveling. And now we have access to this really overpowered questline that lets you get like a ridiculous amount of experience with basically no effort. This is absolutely crazy, and as mentioned, it is usable on, obviously, Thaldraszus Dreamsurges, but even if it is not the active Dreamsurge zone, you still want to be doing this in conjunction with the other stuff. One of the biggest misconceptions about Dreamsurge leveling that I have seen, which hopefully I will be able to clear up when I make my Dreamsurge guide in a few days, is a lot of people seem to think that when a Dreamsurge is active, you are only questing in those zones. That is not the case whatsoever. As with anything in leveling, experience bonuses are relative to how efficient the base experience value of that quest is. If you are getting a 75% increase on a garbage quest, you're still not going to do that, as I discussed earlier with Thaldraszus. So even if you are doing quests in Waking Shores or Onaran Plains and stuff like that, with a 75% modifier, they are still going to be slower than this questline right here. Hell, even Azure Span, this particular questline specifically, dwarfs anything else within Azure Span. Now, it's a little bit trickier when you factor in, like, if you don't have the Dreamsurge effect, and you have to do all the preamble stuff to it to unlock it, like, is that going to make it worth it? I still think it will be worth doing, but it becomes a little bit less efficient on specifically Azure Span Dreamsurge week, just because Azure Span is really broken. But definitely this is worth doing for Onaran Plains and Waking Shores, and like I said, it's still worth doing for Azure Span, even still. And honestly, I really don't think Blizzard should change this. Sure, it's a really broken questline and it's really good, but I think we need to talk about the elephant in the room briefly. I only have 2 more minutes to talk about the elephant in the room, so we're going to speedrun the elephant conversation. I cannot, like, post anything leveling related on YouTube right now, and quite frankly, nobody in this game at the moment can say anything related to leveling right now without somebody opening their big fucking mouth and saying, "Why don't you just buy a Breckenhide Hollow Boost? Oh, I have, like, millions of gold by playing the auction house, and I level my characters by paying somebody else 100k gold to do it for me." There was, like, somebody on one of my videos bragging about leveling 27 alts at 100k a pop by boosting. And it's like, dude, you're not even fucking playing the game. And the problem is Blizzard has not fucking changed that. Blizzard lets boosting be as broken as it is. And you know what? Up until this point, sure, if you have the gold, boosting was probably better. But I have friends who sell boosts, and I've told them about this route, and they've been like, fuck, boosting's dead. And yeah, as long as this remains in the game, boosting is fucking dead, because this questline is broken. So, my thing with Blizzard is if Blizzard chooses to nerf this questline and give us absolutely nothing in return, doesn't nerf boosting at all, they're telling people that they don't want you to actually play the game and they want you to boost. Okay, end of soapbox. Okay, well, I'm restarting my game, because, you know, I had to close it for the memory leak, because I didn't want to just, like, not talk at the end. Obviously, technically, I could be talking in post anyways. But wow. Yeah, so I made it before the experience buff even went out. That is, without a doubt, my fastest ever 60 to 70 run. And it's not even close. That was ludicrously fast. And I think, if anything, hopefully you can see how this can be even faster. And there's one other thing that I want to show. The reason why I'm not just ending the run here is because that's actually not the end of the questline. There's more. There is actually an additional quest after this. There's actually more quests after this. So, I think that is the last one right there. Actually, yeah, that is literally the last one. Okay, so I take it back. There is one more quest after that. But still, that is an additional, that last one's like 100k XP. It's like basically 1/3 of a level. So I could have gone in there even earlier. And I think realistically, then the question becomes like, how do I route around that? Like knowing that I don't have that experience. And that's an interesting one. I think, honestly, that's just, like, within a decent amount of variance, maybe... Honestly, I think I just completely ignored the rare mobs in Thaldraszus, because, like, wow, they are efficient normally in a run when you can just do that questline and it's faster. I just don't even think you need those rares. And I think if I had skipped those rares and maybe been, like, moderately faster, maybe it could have saved time? I don't know. It's really hard to say. I do think that I should have set my Hearthstone to Valdrakken slightly earlier. I set it at the end, so I still got some time. But I could have saved, like, a minute there. Obviously, I lost, like, a few minutes. Like, let's basically say I lost 5 minutes total due to various mistakes throughout time-walking dungeons, either caused by myself or other people. So I think, like, 5 minutes, maybe you could say another 5 minutes if you had a really optimized group speedrunning them, because I think my group wasn't necessarily amazing. So I think if you would speedrun those 4 time-walking dungeons, if I had gotten a little bit better RNG on that quest where I had to, like, imprison the dragons, because that one really sucks, could have saved a little bit there. But the big thing here, the big takeaway, is look at this timer. Look at this ridiculous timer right here. And this is... I mean, this is like... I honestly think sub 1 hour is possible. Now, the more interesting question is, can you get sub 1 hour, but without the time walking experience buff? Is that possible? And that one I don't know, because obviously this is with all the crazy buffs, and we're still only at, 1 hour, 23 minutes. And I think, realistically, the fastest that this run could have gotten, without, like, me changing up some of the routing, or, like, obviously, I went to Waking Shores, which I just shouldn't have gone to Waking Shores. Let's chalk that up to, like, a 3-minute time loss, 3, 4. I think if you factor in all of the potential time saves I could have made, I still think your fastest possible time here is, like, 1 hour, 10 minutes. You can maybe, shave off 13 minutes from this if I had played literally perfectly and made 0 mistakes whatsoever. That is reasonably achievable. And what other dungeons could I have even gotten for Cataclysm? Because I think I got, like, all the good ones. Come to think of it. Because we have... Yeah, I didn't get End Time. End Time, I guess... Is Grim Batol in the Time Walking Pool? It's not. Thank the Lord. Yeah, I guess technically speaking, I think the only thing I would have changed is I probably would have preferred to get End Time over Blackrock Caverns. End Time's pretty easy, and, like, if you don't get completely screwed on RNG, it's actually decently fast. About as fast as, like, Lost City. But yeah, I would say Vortex Pinnacle and Throne of the Tides are probably the 2 best. Like, I got bad elevator RNG. That was maybe 2 minutes. I don't know. I think if you pick apart, like, the entire route, I don't think you find 23 minutes of time save right now with this. So then the question becomes, where does that come from? And I don't know. I believe it's possible, because I think I could have gotten much closer. I think like I said, could have gotten 1 hour, 10 minutes. I think, though, and this is kind of where we get into, like, scheduling issues with Dreamsurges, I do believe that the 1 hour time would need to come from Azure Span being the Dreamsurge zone, and it having the buff 100% of the time. And then I think you do all of the most efficient parts of Azure Span, and then you knock out this quest line without any modifiers, and I think it's still faster. And something interesting to consider is I don't know when you do that. because the thing about Turbulent Timeways is this was definitely the best week to do Turbulent Timeways. So before, I floated the idea of doing a run on the 17th, like a perfect sub-hour attempt, but this would be Azure Span week, so next week, actually, would it? Oh yeah, because Tuesday, yeah. So this is going to be Baking Shores, this is Onaran Plains, this is Azure Span. So this is Azure Span week. So you get the 30% buff, you carry that over into Azure Span Dreamsurge, and in theory, it's fast. And I think you could probably get a comparable time doing exactly what I said. But the more I think about it, I don't really know if that setup gets you a sub 1 hour time. It would get something just like this. Because we got 2 hours on my Fury Warrior run, and that could have been optimized a lot further, and I didn't have good RNG, and I was missing the 30% time walking buff. So I could have easily gotten that run like 25 minutes faster just with the time surge buff, or the whatever, Timeways buff. And then I think if I had included the Thaldraszus questline instead of the other stuff I did, it could have definitely gone down to sub an hour and a half. I don't know. Either way, I'm going to stop rambling. This is a question for a future version of Haraldin to solve. I wanted to at least kind of ponder it because I do think it is an interesting thing to consider. And you can see I got all the buffs, but no, don't even need it. Fucking easy peasy. And yeah, so that's it. That is the fastest 60 to 70 run that I have ever managed to pull off. I guess the last thing that I'll end on is, because I got my Coltier and Druid 4.5 hours, 10 to 70 run before, and something that I have been thinking about is, had I combined like this route with my 10 to 60 time for Coltier, that Coltier run, could I have saved time here? And it definitely would have saved time off my 60 to 70 time, though it wouldn't have been quite as fast, because obviously there's a difference between carrying over a run into the 60 to 70 bracket and doing one like from, a starting point, right? And obviously rested experience is a factor. I did have that on this character, right? So that did skew the time a little bit. So it wouldn't have been nearly as fast. It probably would have been about an hour and a half if I had done this on my Coltier and Druid with all this setup. And with Winds of Wisdom, honestly, I got barely sub 2 hours, so I would have only lost 30 minutes. And I think, even with the Turbulent Timeways buff, I still think that run was better. That Coltier and Druid run was just ridiculous. And obviously, that's not even factoring in the whole, like, 10 to 60 portion of it. But this is definitely a faster 10 to 60, or 60 to 70 compared to my Coltier run. But I think that run as a whole I still feel stronger. And I think for, like, what I had to do for 60 to 70, I think it was pretty good. Anyways, like I said before, I'll stop rambling. I could sit here and talk about a bunch of random garbage. I'm very excited, as you might imagine. I did say before, I've been trying to set this run up for 24 fucking hours. So even though it didn't go literally perfectly, I think it got pretty close. This is definitely what I wanted. My goal for this run, because I wasn't entirely sure if sub 1 hour was achievable on this particular run, but my goal for this run was sub an hour and a half. I didn't actually say that because I didn't want to speak it into existence, then like get fucked over by karma or whatever. But I made the goal that I set out for myself, and I am content. And now I gotta get this fucker uploaded onto YouTube, so that's fun. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed watching. Look forward to the Dreamsurge guide either tomorrow or Thursday. Honestly, whenever I have time for it. But I'll try to get that out soon. Maybe it gets pushed back a little bit. I have a lot of things I need to work on. But I'm trying to get that out. So look forward to that. Hope you enjoyed watching. And stream on Saturday the 7th if you're watching it close to when it comes out. Anyways, I'll stop myself there. See ya.